So CM Punk is said to join the UFC. I mean, following the footsteps of Brock Lesnar. I'm not sure the other wrestler that's involved right now. I think it's Batista. They may be fighting right now in one of his fights in the WWE. But if you want to find out more UFC news, make sure to go and download TheCage. It is an app. Check more details in the description below. You can watch the fights, track upcoming news, anything and everything to do with UFC. But before we get to that, Ben Goldstein's here from Cage Potato. Thanks for joining us, Ben. So what is your view on this CM Punk?
I mean, it's an absurd publicity stunt, obviously, but I think it's kind of a necessary move for the UFC. You have to understand, the UFC has been in a slump over the last couple of years. Pay-per-view buys are down, revenue's down, fan interest is sort of waning because of event oversaturation. The UFC needs a moment of relevance again, and I think for better or worse, this is it. This is going to get fans talking again and tuning in again to see if CM Punk, the pro wrestler, can actually fight. I don't know if he can. He probably doesn't really know if he can. He's been training jiu-jitsu with the Gracie brothers, Hiron and Henner, for several years now. But outside of that, could he really perform in an actual, unscripted fight? I kind of want to find out. I'm curious.
Yeah. Who would you think would make a great first fight for him? Because I keep hearing about the Green Power Ranger?
I don't know. That guess is as good as any, because I think it'd be a surprise to me if the UFC put him up against anybody who is currently on their roster. Even UFC President Dana White said they're going to try to find someone who's like 1-0 or 2-1 or something like that to serve as CM Punk's first opponent. Basically, someone with as little fight experience as CM Punk does. Now, when you say that, then it starts to feel like a freak show, because this opponent they're going to bring in from would never have a place in the UFC otherwise. It's just someone to serve as CM Punk's first opponent. So I would be surprised if it's anybody we actually heard of. Could be Green Power Ranger. Who knows? Who knows? It could, I think there's an outside chance that they find like some old semi-retired veteran to bring back in, like someone like Chris Lieben. But I think it's going to be someone that we've never heard of.
Well, the Green Power Ranger does have 4 MMA fights under his belt, so that wouldn't be too far-fetched.
Yeah. Right, true, but he is not, currently in the UFC.
Yeah.
So, and he's never competed in the UFC, just like CM Punk. So I like I said, maybe, could be. That your guess is as good as mine.
So you said there about crossover. It's an interesting point. Is the final hope that some of the WWE fans come across to watch CM Punk? I mean, he is 36 years of age. I don't know too much in terms of what age cutoff goes for you to be in your peak in the UFC, but what is your perspective on that? Doesn't seem to me that he's in his youth and ready to start a new career in this brutal sport.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because you have to remember when the UFC brought in Brock Lesnar to fight in the heavyweight division, he was responsible for some of the biggest pay-per-view buy rates they ever had, including the #1 biggest one. So I think they're hoping that CM Punk has a similar kind of impact, where he starts bringing over those, pro wrestling fans or casual fans that just, at least know this name. Whether he has the same impact as Lesnar did, I don't know. I mean, from a competitive standpoint, probably not. You have to remember that, Lesnar came from a legitimate amateur wrestling background. He's this physical dynamo. He could beat guys with his sheer size and power. Phil Brooks, CM Punk, he doesn't have any of that. He's starting almost from zero. I don't see him ever becoming UFC champion like Lesnar did. The only thing he has on Lesnar maybe is his personality. He's got this great articulate, camera-friendly presence. He could be a great ambassador for the sport. He's the kind of guy you send out to do ESPN interviews and send out the late-night talk shows. He could be a face of the organization in a way that Lesnar or other pro wrestlers don't know how to be. And if he could actually win a few fights, his value as a pay-per-view attraction could rise as well.
I think some of the Brock Lesnar fights were some of the highest watched UFC fights of all time. So I guess the hope's that. But I mean, I watched Brock Lesnar in SummerSlam a few months ago, and it just, the fans love that guy. I can't imagine CM Punk kind of having that effect that Lesnar did.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting. It's because he has this larger-than-life personality. These pro wrestlers, they're used to speaking in front of a camera and commanding an audience.
Yeah.
A lot of the fighters on the UFC roster, they're just there to compete and fight to the best of their ability. They don't really they're not practiced in building a personality, building a following like these pro wrestlers do. That's why they might, potentially have such success in a sport that's all about the individual and about drawing a crowd. So that's why, pro wrestling stars are so valuable in the sport.
Yeah, tell that to Conor McGregor, 'cause I'm pretty sure he knows how to build a character in front of the camera. He's
absolutely
he's perfected both sides.
But Conor McGregor, he just like Chael Sonnen before him, he's taking pages out of the pro wrestling promotion handbook.
Yeah.
Being a heel and talking trash and building yourself up like a superstar, like a superhero. Yeah. This stuff all comes from pro wrestling. Let's not pretend that it doesn't. MMA, I don't know if it's ever been a sport with integrity. It's sports entertainment from day one. And the sort of diehard fans will act like they don't want to tune in and see, but they still will. They're fascinated by these personalities.
Speaking of trash talking, rowdy Ronda Rousey took to Twitter to give her take on CM Punk joining UFC, and she was excited about it. I think she said, "Go ahead, you can read it."
I don't know. She said, "What?" with question marks. Can't wait. But Nathan Diaz wasn't so ecstatic about it, should you say? He came out and just said, "Why?" question mark. What do you think about that, Ben?
Well, it's so fascinating. Ronda Rousey and Nate Diaz, you couldn't have two more different personalities in the way they approach self-promotion in the sport. Ronda Rousey, she's said many times she's been a fan of pro wrestling. She's behind anything that will bring heat to this sport and attention to her fights and everybody else's fights. Of course, she's behind it. Nate Diaz, he's more of an insular figure. He's an introvert. He cares about his own fights and doesn't really care about anything else. He doesn't care about the promotion in a way that Ronda might have some skin in the game. As the UFC succeeds, so does she. And Nate Diaz doesn't see it that way. He just like his brother Nick. They just want pure, clean competition. Everything else is noise.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, Ronda Rousey was at a SummerSlam.
She was?
Yeah, right ringside, screaming with her entire entourage and T-shirts they had homemade.
Oh, okay.
It was so she is a fan.
So I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Some people might not agree with it, but I'm a fan, and I'll probably tune in to watch it. I'm just a neutral fan, and that's what's going to draw in. It's going to draw in the neutral audience to see if you can try and make it in the UFC and see what happens. But it's going to be exciting nonetheless. Thanks again, Ben, for joining us, giving us your perspective on this. Thank you, Lindsay. Again, make sure to subscribe to TYT Sports. Check out Ben at cagepotato.com. Thanks again.